Welcome everyone to this online workshop offered by the British Isles Family History Society. My name is Diane Bryden and I am the Program Director of BIFHSGO, or as we like to call it, the British Isles Family History Society, we like to call BIFHSGO. I'll be your host today. We also have Dina Palarides behind the scenes who's coordinating the technical side of things. I know that we have many participants who are not BIFHSGO members, and I'd like to welcome them and explain a little bit about who we are. BIFHSGO aims to encourage family history research by people with ancestry throughout the British Isles. We do that by connecting BIFHSGO members with each other and others who are interested, by educating and beginning and experienced family historians about trusted research methods and best practices, by sharing members' knowledge with other researchers, and by inspiring others through educational presentations and members' published stories. Our full membership is invited to a monthly meeting, usually every second Saturday of the month. Our next monthly meeting will feature Christine Jackson talking about the mystery of the Ragman's children. Christine's presentations are always chock full of interesting stories and good examples for researching, so you won't want to miss this one. Looking ahead, the March meeting will feature not one, but two talks by Lucille Campy. Lucille has written many talks about English, Scottish, and Irish immigration to Canada, and she'll be talking about her research for her latest book on Irish immigration. Note the special time for that feature talk. Lucille has also agreed to offer a bonus education talk at 9 a.m., where she'll talk about the genealogical gems that can be found in British parliamentary papers. Now for today's workshop. It will be presented in 4 parts. In each segment, there will be a demonstration lasting about 15 to 20 minutes, followed by a 10-minute practice period. There'll be a question period at the end, which will very likely go a little bit beyond noon. Given the large number of people participating today, microphones are muted. If you have questions at any time during the session, please send them by typing in the chat to questions. If we can, we'll address them as we go. Otherwise, I'll gather them for the question period at the end. Today's workshop will be recorded. You'll be able to find the video on the education page of BIFHSGO's website, as you can see here. It will be freely available on the website for 2 weeks from the time they are posted. After that, they'll be moved to the members only section. And I'd like to note there's no outline handout for today's session. If you'd like to review the content that's offered, the video will be available. And what I like to do is pause the videos and practice as I go on my own time. So hopefully that will be helpful to you. So now it's my pleasure to introduce our presenters. Duncan Monkhouse is BIFHSGO's president, and Barbara Tose is our past president. This workshop came about because several BIFHSGO members over the past few months told us that they didn't feel confident sharing their stories with our membership because they didn't know how to use PowerPoint. Barb and Duncan have created many PowerPoint presentations in both their professional and genealogical careers, and they offered to give a workshop for us.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to start you off with a little bit of overview of things that you need to think about with regards to your presentation. So the first thing I want to say is that we're here to learn. So I'm here to give you a bit of an overview and get us started with some things that we should think about before we even start our presentation. So the point of today is to be here to learn. It can sometimes seem, when we're talking about what not to do, if you've made a presentation and you've made some of these mistakes or done these things, it can sound like we're being critical. But believe me, both Duncan and I have done pretty much everything that we talk about here. The idea of learning from past experiences, learning new skills, and seeing things differently, so that you can improve your next presentation. And I'm really pleased to see that so many people are here and are keen to learn how to do that. So focus on learning skills that will make your next presentation pop. The other thing I want to point out is that Duncan and I are not experts. We simply are users of PowerPoint who sat through a lot of presentations over the years. And you can learn as much from watching someone else's presentation as you can from doing one. But until you actually do one, you don't really appreciate the work that other people do. So I hope you will learn something new today. There certainly are lots of helpful videos online. All you have to do is put in PowerPoint and YouTube will bring you all kinds of things. We are providing a page of hyperlinks that you can go to that Diane is going to send out after the fact, and that gives you a lot of things to look at there. And if you're desperate, of course, you can always go to the help button in PowerPoint. So I want you to think about presentations that you've seen, both good and bad. What made them good or bad? We've all been to presentations that we were keen to see on a topic of great interest. We were really focused at the start. We were watching that squirrel and he wasn't going to get away from us. But somehow the talk just missed the mark and it didn't quite catch and keep our attention. Somewhere along the way, you lose your concentration. Then you miss something important. Distractions are plentiful, but ultimately, the speaker loses you. You're puzzling over this map she presented, but she plows on through mountains of information, half of which you miss, and ends up with a slide like this and expects you to read it in record time, or worse yet, reads the whole thing to you. You end up asking, why should I care? Why should I bother staying and listening to this talk? It's easy to be critical, but what you need to do if you're in that situation is ask yourself, what should I do to keep people's attention? What should I do differently? Part of making your PowerPoint presentation pop is part of the answer. However, the biggest part of a great presentation is the work you do before you ever touch PowerPoint. I don't know how many here will remember the talk I gave on my great aunt Nellie, who traveled through Europe in 1914. I spent 6 months just thinking about how to tell the story before I touched PowerPoint. I needed to think of the angle that I could use with the audience to get and keep their attention, to make them care about Nellie's story. Only then could I sit down and start creating the presentation in PowerPoint. The other thing I need to make clear is that to make a presentation that pops takes a lot of time. To focus your talking points, find the right image, and manipulate it to illustrate your point, ensuring that people won't get lost in the details takes time and careful thought. You know your story intimately, but your audience doesn't. Your end goal is to have your presentation illustrate, illuminate, clarify, and augment what you have to say. You want to always ask how this helps my audience follow, understand, and care about what I'm telling them. So you're ready to start, but you need to think about a few things before you get down to brass tacks too, like what to avoid. I'm going to talk about a few of the big ones to me, but we still see a lot of these, even from veteran presenters. My pet peeve is the one that I used in the advertising. I know you can't read this, but, well, if you can't read it, why are you using it? Why haven't you made it readable? And if you really have to use this, if there's something vitally important in it, then make that piece of information pop out so it can be read, so people know what you're talking about. They can actually see it. And we'll be talking a bit about how you can do that. Complicated family histories can benefit from a pedigree chart, but not like this one. No one can see that anyone's name there is Agnes, and you certainly couldn't read the details. You know your family history very well. You can follow the pedigree without a problem, but your audience can't. You need to think of that. Photographs that are faded, distant, blurry, covered in scanned dust, and uncropped are really no longer acceptable. Photo enhancers and easily accessible tools, some of which are in PowerPoint, make photo improvements relatively easy. Use the photo enhancer at MyHeritage if you can't manage anything else. It actually does a pretty good job. Neutral backgrounds are generally pretty good. This is a neutral color, but is it a neutral background? If you put text and images on this, you'll see that the random pattern of it doesn't allow for the text to be very visible. So you might want to go with a darker color. This makes the text a little more visible, although the colors don't stand out yet. And I don't really think it complements the image. And I don't know that you'd want to sit and look at this for 40 or 50 slides. It might get a little tiring. So a plain, untextured, one-colored background for all of your slides unifies your presentation. So you need to think about a color, text, color, images, photos, and documents, all of the things you're going to use in your presentation, and find a palette that is acceptable for all of those. And you want legibility, visibility, complementary colors, and easy to look at for the length of the presentation. So this palette here is a little bit better, at least to my eye. It complements the picture, and it's legible, visible, and even the colors that I've chosen stand out fairly well. It's also a little more relaxing on the eye. So backgrounds are important because backgrounds can change the color of what you're using in the foreground. So this is the BIFHSGO red, and it's the same red, one with a black background and one with a white background. And to my eye, these reds look slightly different. Not a lot, but just slightly. And I also think that the one on black looks a little smaller. Duncan, on the other hand, thinks the one on white does. Do you see a difference? Color blindness is also something that we sometimes need to think about in our color schemes. This is something that was made up for me by one of our members, Wanda Quinn, when I was looking at doing some work with the logos. And I wanted to know what things would look like based on color blindness. And you can see that the two different types of color blindness make a big difference in how people see our logos. These are samples of colors that look similar to people with the two different types of color blindness. And you can see that oranges, reds, and browns for the first type are almost indistinguishable, and greens and oranges are almost identical. So if you put orange text on a green background because it was St. Paddy's Day, someone with color blindness would not see any difference at all. They would just see a green-gray screen. So these are things that we do need to think about from time to time when we're looking at color palettes. In the end, this is a better slide than all the rest I've shown you because it's very simple. There's only 4 messages you need to read and an image to look at. It's relatively relaxing to the eye. It's visible. You get the message. There's lots of other choices that await you down the line, but for now, let's show you some of the features of PowerPoint and get you started on a presentation. Over to you, Duncan.
So, thank you, Barb. We're going to start off with a little bit of a hands-on section, which means me being hands-on and you watching me move through PowerPoint, and to discuss some of the options and try some of the choices and things that are there. PowerPoint's a very powerful piece of software. It's got many, many options and choices, and you can't break it. So the option here is to just work through and try all sorts of different things. If you have troubles or if you not sure what you want to do, then check out YouTube. As Barb mentioned, there are many tutorials on how to use PowerPoint from beginning to expert, and they'll show you how to use the wide range of features that are available. So let's start looking at what's on the screen right now, the basic PowerPoint screen, and hopefully you're all somewhat familiar with this. There's 3 pieces. There's a bar across the top a ribbon section through the middle, and then the working area at the bottom. The left-hand side shows the different slides that you have, and the middle one is the current slide that you're working on. If we start at the top here, this very top bar has some icons at the beginning. There's a save icon, very important one, which is the next one, which is a little back arrow. So if you do something you're not happy with, you can reverse that. But then if you decide you like it, the next one lets you go back forward again. The interesting thing about this particular bar is that by using the arrow at the end, you can actually add and change things to it. So if there are features that you find you're using on a regular basis, you can add them to this bar. And instead of having to do 4 or 5 mouse clicks to get to that feature, you can do it with 1. Below that, we have the ribbon. The ribbon is made up of 2 pieces. There's the tabs, which run across the top, and then the sub-features for that particular tab that are underneath. The first one here is the File tab, which brings up another window to allow you to either open previous presentations or to select a new presentation. Typically, I would start with a blank presentation because I want to control what it looks like all the way through. However, they give you a number of different themes of choices that you can pick, and numbers by hundreds of different themes. You can do by different types, and you can search for different themes, which may help you with your vision of what you want it to look like. The default tab here is through the Home tab. This is shows you the features that you would typically be using on your current screen. These are made up of the clipboard for cutting and pasting, whether you want to add new slides or the layout that you would like to use for your current slide. Typically, you start with a title slide like the one you see here, but it has a number of other choices of types of slides that you would like to use. It'll start with kind of a format for you. They have a font section, a paragraph section. There's an area for drawings to bring things in, to put in boxes and so on. The last one here to talk about is the design ideas. We'll talk a bit about that when we get into actually working with some of this stuff. The next one is insert. So this is a list of features that you can do to add to things to your screen. So you can add pictures or tables or screenshots or shapes. These kind of the main ones we look at doing. Also, you can add in text boxes. If you want to add in audio or video, some really advanced, then that's also done here. The next tab is the Design tab. So this gives you a choice of how you would like your whole presentation to look. There are a number of choices you can see here, and it expands to quite a large selection for background. And then within each one of these, there is a variant. So you can pick a particular color if I decide I like green. But then I could also say, well, this is to do with Lost at Sea, so maybe I should pick a blue one. It's hard, yeah, maybe with the tabs across the top. The next one is a Transitions tab, which deals with features on how to go from one slide to the next. The Animations tab allows you to change items that you have or assets that are on the current slide to how they come in or how they're displayed to the user. We have a slideshow, which allows you to actually have a look and see what your slideshow looks like, or actually to do the presentation. And the last one, there's View, which is really useful in terms of if you would want to do a slide sorter, you can use the sorter to move the slides around very easily if you want to change the order of what you're doing. And the last one is the Help, which is really important. There's a lot of great information there. And you can even get someone to give you a hand with an expert, real expert, to give you a hand with your presentation to make it look nice. So we're going to start working through some of the slides here. The first one is my title slide, which you can see I tried to pick a title that I thought might be interesting track the audience, in this case, Lost at Sea. So, but being not a very imaginative person, I kind of like to use the design ideas. So what this does is Microsoft or PowerPoint has taken what is on the slide and looked up things that you might want to use in terms of how to display. So I kind of like the first one here. So it gives the idea of being at sea. And so I can just click on that and makes it a little more interesting to grab at the start. So the design ideas works fairly well for text, not so well if you're looking at pictures, but there are other things that Barb will be talking about in terms of for pictures. The next slide that I have is one that talks a little bit about one of my ancestors called Captain John Smith. So what I've done is I've created a slide with a header. In this particular case, the format I'm using is title and content. So there's a title and then just bullets in terms of the content. Looks a little boring. So one of the things that we could do to liven it up is we can use the design ideas to put a graphic in there to provide some interest. Still looks pretty good. It's kind of like a little more fancier maybe. And the bullets I'm not so happy about. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a feature here called Smart Art. So I'm going to select the bullets, right click, and convert to Smart Art. And here you'll see I have a bunch of choices of different bullets that I can use for the text that's here. One I wanted to pick is actually in more. There are many, many choices you can pick here. So what that does is it changes the bullet so that it looks a little different, a little more interesting. Change them to blue to kind of go with the blue of the image that I inserted. So the next thing we're going to talk about a bit is trees, ancestral trees. Barb showed you this tree earlier, the pedigree chart, which was unreadable and is even more unreadable now that I've made it smaller. So what I'm looking at doing here is duplicating it in terms of a tree that is more readable. So the first thing I'm going to do is add a box in here for John Smith. So we'll do that and we'll add in John Smith. And that's good, except I'm off a generation. So I need another set of boxes here. So I have already grouped this generation together. We'll talk about grouping in a second. So what I'm going to do is use my Control-C to copy that particular group and then Control-V to paste it. So that's created that group of boxes for me. And then I can just stick it here. I'm going to change that to the names that I want. So that gives me the generation I was missing. And that Annie Smith marries up with the one over here. I'm going to take John. And you'll see, maybe, or maybe not, but as I move him around, there's now a red dashed line that lines it up with the right-hand side of Annie Smith. I can drag it over to line it up with the other side. Somehow that moved over a bit. Yeah, all right. Now, what I want to do is I want to connect those. And to do that, I'm going to select the line feature from here. I'm going to go from the dot in John Smith to the dot in Annie Smith. The next thing so it creates the line, but it's rather thin. So I'm going to change the weight of that line so that I can see it. The reason I'm going from dot to dot is as I move John Smith, you'll see that the line moves as well. So it's anchored in both places. What I want to do though is in future, when I'm going to talk about animations, I want these two to be together as one. So I'm going to use the Shift key to select both John Smith box and the line, and then right click and group. So now these two items are grouped together, and if I move them, they go as a pair. Another way to look at a family tree is a little more simplistic. Here I've omitted the boxes and just added in some people. Again, we're going to add John Smith here. It's a little easier. Just type in John Smith. That creates the name. I'd like him to be in red so that he stands out. And then the last thing I need to do is add a line In this case, I'm going to pick the one with arrows. Again, I'm going from John Smith Stott and Smith, and there we go. Maybe I'll move them over a bit. So there's another way to do a tree, just to give you an example of how that looks. So I think that's it for at this point. What we're going to do is we're going to give you a break so you can go and practice doing some of that on your own. And if you want to come back, Diane, do you want to talk about the break?
Yes, you'll have 10 minutes for a break right now, and I'll give you a 2-minute warning when it's time to come back, and then we'll start with the second part of the presentation. So you have 10 minutes. Okay, folks, we're going to come back, but before we start the next session, we have a few minutes. If you have a couple of questions, you can send them to me. Someone asked Duncan if how to put a box around their words. Are you going to cover that a little bit later? Or do you want to, can you show them now?
So if you're looking at this particular screen and I want to put a box around John Smith, what I can do is select John Smith and right click on it. And down towards the bottom, there's, so right now I just right clicked on it and there's an outline choice. Right now there's no outline, but I can put a line around the outside by selecting the weight of that line and picking a number. And then I can also pick a color for the line around the outside, for instance, blue. So that would create a box around that particular one.
And could you, another question, could you show people again where the design ideas is?
Okay, so format. So in my version, which is 365, there is in the upper right-hand corner of the ribbon something that says Design Ideas. And if you click on that, in this particular slide, it brings up a pane on the right-hand side. For this particular slide, it doesn't have any ideas. But if I pick another one that has mainly text, it will come up with a bunch of different choices as to what I might want it to look like.
Okay, but to be clear, that design ideas icon may not be present if people are using an older version of PowerPoint.
Absolutely.
Okay. And another one, where do you find the button to insert the background color?
Background color. So that would be under Design, and you can format the background here in the upper corner. So then that allows you to change what the background looks like. It brings up a pane on the right-hand side for format background, and you can change how you want the background to look.
Could you change the color just to show them?
Color. There we go. So just change the background to orange. I can do is a gradient fill, which is a different color that does a different choice. I could use a picture. So if I wanted to, I could actually bring a picture in and use that as the background. For instance, I go to this particular slide, I could select a picture and then insert it from my computer or online or somewhere. Barb's going to talk more about pictures later.
Okay, I think that's all the questions we have at this point. Oh, there was someone about, could you just go over again showing how you put the lines between the boxes?
So here, what we're looking at using is either one, the home, and then I selected a line out of the box in the drawings. So in this case, I just selected a line without just a straight line. I could have selected ones with angles in or bends in them, which is what I used for these other lines. But by selecting that, and then when you click the mouse, if I click on the box and pick a spot, it'll draw a line for me.
But it's important to click on the dot you said so that it connects to that box, right?
Right. Otherwise, so that like I did there, it didn't move.
Right.
But yeah, so that it moves with the just use delete there.
Okay.
So
And
that it moves with it.
good. And then another one, could you remind people how to do a group box again?
So what I did for the group was I selected the items that I wanted to be in the group. For instance, John's, let's go to a different slide. So I wanted to say I want to group John Smith and Annie Smith and the line in between. So I'm holding down the shift key and just clicking on the items that I want to be grouped. And then using the right mouse button, one of the options is group, and then selecting group on that puts those together.
Okay. So it's like collecting a group in anything you do in Office.
Right.
Word or, yeah. Okay.
So if I right click on it, I can also ungroup if I want to break them back out again. And you might want to do that on, for instance, on this slide. If I want to break the text apart here and do something different, i.e. put numbers in here, then I might need to ungroup that first to change the individual items.
Okay. Okay, I think that's all the time we have for questions for this round. So Barb, could you share your screen again? And over to you for the second part.
Okay, I'm back. So we're going to talk about images here, except I don't want to be in full view because I have to teach you how to do this. So I'm just going to delete this title that I put in. So I just click on that, and if you see the markers around the edges and the little circle at the top there, that means that box is active, and you can do almost anything with it at that point. So I just press the delete key, and that goes away. From here, I'm going to insert a document and walk you through that. So we're going to go to Insert in the upper ribbon here, and that's going to give us a bunch of selections. And I want to put in a document, which is actually a digital picture. So you go to a picture. It is something that's located on my device because it's something that I've downloaded, or actually I've scanned this one in. These are letters that I got. We found actually in my grandmother's attic. That was letters of, and this is where the design ideas come up. When you insert something like this, the design idea box will come up. And if you don't like what they suggest, you just have to close that. There's my document. And as you can see, it's one of those documents that, although it's important, it's not very visible. So there's a bit of text in it that I want to bring out. And the best way to do that is to activate your slide again by clicking on it and having that little surround. And then I can just do hold Control down and hit C, which copies it, Control V, which pastes it, and you'll find that you have two documents. I take the document that is active and I go up here to the ribbon where it says crop. I click on crop, and you'll notice that these little black bars show up around my document. And so I just grab on those little bars. I'm clicking with my mouse and holding it down while I drag that down to the section that I want to highlight. And you have to make sure that you've got that little T on the black bar, because otherwise it will change the shape of your document on you. I'll show you that on another one. So there I've cropped what I want, and you just go up to the ribbon again and hit crop. And there you are, you've got a piece that's the same size, but you can now resize that so that it's much bigger and more legible. And to make it really stand out on your page, you can put a border on that. You go up to, as long as your picture is active, you'll have this menu here that says picture format. And you can go up to that and just click on the border and decide on the weight that you want. And I'm going to make it fairly dark so you can see it. You can also decide on what color you want. You could even put a frame around it, but I'm going to leave it with just a border. I'll talk about frames in a minute. And there's a very important word in this document that I want to highlight when I'm talking, and that's the word sober. I have 6 of these for my grandfather, and every single one refers to him as a sober man. So what I want to do there is I want to insert a shape. And to do that, I go insert, and just along the line here, I see shapes. I click on the arrow, and that gives me a whole choice of things. And I'm going to make it a little oval. You come over to your document with your little crosshairs, and you just make one that's big enough to fit over that word. And then you go up to the ribbon again, and you've got a menu here that says Shape Fill. You want to click on that little arrow and say No Fill. So it now becomes visible. The word becomes visible again, but you still got your circle there. You just can't see it. So you want to go to the shape outline, which is just below the shape fill. And I'm going to make that red because I want it to stand out. And I'm going to go down to my weight and choose something that's a little bit bigger so that you get to see it. So there you are. You've got a document that you can read. You can actually see the word that you really want people to see, and they can read the most important part of the document. So now we're going to move on to photographs. So I'm just going to create a new slide, and to do that, I like to work with blank slides. So I go up here and just to the new slide and click on the arrow, and it gives me choices, and I pick the blank slide. So I'm going to go back to insert again, and to my pictures on this device. And I'm going to choose a picture that I've enhanced in my heritage of a wedding party. This is it. And when I start sizing it down, and again, the design ideas, if you don't want to see those, you can actually stop them suggesting, which I'm going to do because it just reduces my screen size, and I need as much screen size as I can get. So when I'm positioning this, you'll notice that very small crosshairs show up, both horizontally and vertically, and that gives you an indication that what you have is centered on your page. So those guidelines that just pop up are very helpful when you're trying to locate or trying to center things. So you'll notice, though, that in this photograph, that it's a little bit crooked, and everybody seems to be standing on a bit of an angle. And unfortunately, there isn't really a way to correct that in PowerPoint. You can rotate your picture. If you take that little circle at the top of the picture, you can take that and rotate it. And you can do it as much or as little as you want. And if you do that, it will stay in that position. But unfortunately, when you then go to crop, it only allows you to crop straight down. It doesn't actually allow you to crop a straight picture. It will just crop it. And then you still have, when you put it back, you still have people who are standing crooked. So, so I go back out. I'm going to just delete this, and I'm going to go back out and show you a way where you can do this with another program. So I'm going to go back to my slides and pick out the one I want, but instead of inserting it right away, I'm going to right click on it, and it's going to bring up a menu, and I'm going to go to open. And this should open it in Photos, which is part of your Windows software, comes with your Windows. If you're in a PC. I'm sorry, I'm not sure what you would use for a Mac. If there's an equivalent program. But this brings it up in this program, and I want to edit and create. when you come in, there's a menu up here that allows you to go into edit. You choose edit and you choose the crop and rotate. So there's a line here that says straightening on the right-hand side in the right panel. And if you go one way, it goes to the left. If you go or counterclockwise, if you go the other way, it goes clockwise. I want to go clockwise. And you'll notice that I don't really need a lot of change to get those people to stand up straight. So I do that. It's about minus 4 degrees to get it right. And I can also crop in this program as well if I want. So I've already cropped this elsewhere, so I don't really want to take much off, but basically you just pull your sides into where you want to crop it to. And when you're done, you go down to the panel on the right to save a copy. And this means that your original will not be overwritten. You will still have your original on your file. So save a copy, and it will ask you, I believe, where you want to save it. I want to save it to the same file that I took it from, but I'm going to rename it just slightly so that I don't overwrite the file that's there. So I'm going to call it the same name, but version 2. And I bet I get a message. No, good. So it saves the copy. I just have to go back to my PowerPoint, which I believe, here we are back in PowerPoint. So, and this is still sitting waiting for me to insert my photograph. So I'm going to go and find my version 2, which is here, and I'm going to click on that and insert it. And again, we get the photo coming in, and it's actually vertical now. So we don't have to worry about that. We've already cropped it, so we don't need to crop it here. But again, if we did, we would highlight it, go up to crop, and those bars show up, and you pull the sides in.
Barb, can you just go through one more time how you inserted and got to where you edited the photograph? Because I'm not sure everybody has that, but if you could just review it, because I think you froze for a bit.
Okay, so you want me to go back through the
insert whole, and no, not the whole thing, just where you find how to crop a photograph.
How to crop a photograph.
When you insert and then you wanted to get to the photograph, yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to delete this. I'm going to go back to insert.
Right.
Pictures.
Yep.
This device.
Okay. That'll
bring up a file, and hopefully it's the folder that you want. If it's one you've been working in, you pick the one that you just changed, altered, and named version 2, and then so you just highlight it and then click insert.
Right. If you want to crop it before you do that, where do you go?
If you want to crop it before you do that, you have to go into photos again, where I did the straightening. But you can crop in PowerPoint.
Okay. All right.
So if you want to crop in PowerPoint, you just go up here to the right, the ribbon at the top and the right, and click on crop. And again, that brings up these little black bars, and you can pull those down, and that will crop your picture. I can maybe review the photo thing again later. I'm conscious of time. So the other thing I wanted to show you was frames. And up here you have a selection that you can choose of frames, and you can just slide through these and you can see it actually change. You can decide what you like. This is often good, but not when you've got a group of people. But there's one here that makes it look like it's actually out of somebody's photo album. And so it's in white though, and my picture is just a little bit big for, and I was going to tell you, when you size your photographs, you must go from the corner, which I'm having trouble grabbing, because if you don't, if you take it from the side here, it will distort your photograph. So if you have problems with distortion, that's what you're doing. You need to take it from the corner and move diagonally with it. And for some reason, it does not want to give me that corner. So I'll go down here and you can see you get crosshairs once you've picked it up. So we've got a white border on this and we want that, but it would be nice to make it look like it's in a picture book. So you just go to Design and move over to Format Background. And you want to go down to Color, and you want to choose black. And that should change it. So you can see it looks like it's right out of a picture book. And you can do your whole set of photographs like this if you wanted. I think that's everything for that one. I'm going to go back to Home and give myself a new slide again. And I'm going to show you how to bring in images from the web. So I'm going to go to Insert again and Pictures. And instead of going to this device, I'm going to go to Online Pictures. And it takes a little while for this to come up, and hopefully it will show you what I see. It should be a bar at the top, a search bar with a bunch of pictures below. And what I'm going to look for are pictures of Whitby by Frank Meadow Sutcliffe. And I just put in Whitby and Sutcliffe, and it brings up a number of pictures in Creative Commons, because I've asked for Creative Commons only. And I can choose one of those pictures, and I can insert that. You can choose more than one if you want, but I'm just choosing the one. This is Henry Freeman, who was the only person who survived the lifeboat disaster of 1861, because he was wearing this life jacket. No one else was wearing one. So again, you can adjust various things, and I haven't talked about the corrections, but if you highlight your photo and you go to Picture Format up at the top, that's the special menu that comes up when your photos are active. There's corrections that you can do over here on the left, right next to Remove Background. So the little dial of light there is the corrections. Click on that and it brings up this menu. And I can actually make it look very blurry, or I can sharpen it up quite a bit more. I can also change, if I go back to that, I can also change the brightness. It takes a little while for this to click in, but you can see that I can change the brightness and the contrast. And so I might want to take something that's just slightly darker. If you go back to that and go down to the bottom, you have to scroll to the bottom to get the picture corrections options. And what that does is it brings up the picture corrections panel on the right side of your picture. And if you look under Picture Color, down under the brightness and the sharpness, this opens up another menu. You scroll down and you can change the color saturation of this, and you can just use that line, and I can actually take the sepia tone from the picture right out. I can make it black and white, or I can make it very orange if I want to. So I might want to take out just a little bit of that sepia, but leave a touch of it in. You can also change the color temperature. So if you have a photograph that is very, very blue, you can actually, so you can see I can make it blue, or I can take it so that it goes very, very red. So blue is cooler temperatures and reds are higher temperatures. It will only go so far because I haven't got a lot of color there to start with. So you can adjust those to your liking. And again, most of this is to your taste because you're the one who's deciding what you want it to look like. And again, I want to put a border around this now that I've got him the way I want him, and I like the oval on him. And down here, because I've taken it from the web, there is a little text bar that gives you your credit, what you need to use to credit where you got it from. So you just make that a little bit bigger and stick that down at the bottom of your page. And there you've got your credit already there, because we do have to think about copyright when we're using things like this.
Okay, sorry, I think we have to end there, Barb, but 2 questions before we go to practice. Can you just show again where you found that online photograph?
Yep, you go to Insert on the top ribbon and go to Pictures, click on the arrow underneath Pictures, and it gives you 3 choices: this device, stock images, which are already in PowerPoint, and online pictures. So you want to click on online pictures, and it will take a minute or 2, but it will bring up this search bar, and you just type what you're looking for in there and hit return, and it will bring up photographs of Paris. And then you just choose whichever one you want. And again, there's lots of Paris. You just keep scrolling down until you run out of pictures. And you can add whatever search terms you want.
Okay,
so if you're looking for a place. Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to have a break for practice now. There were several skills and features that were just introduced. I'm going to give you about 13 minutes, which should give you 10 minutes to practice.
So in the next section, what I'm going to be looking at is 2 of the ways to make your presentation either more interesting or much more annoying, depending on what you want to do. And that's the transitions and animations section. And so I'm going to start off with this particular slide where I have all of this information here. And what I'd like to do is not get the people attending my presentation to get carried away reading all of this text. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to animate it so that the bullets appear one after the other. And so to do that, I'm going to select the ones that I want to appear. So in this case, this particular one, the first one, I'm going to animations, and I'd like it to appear. So it flashed, probably didn't see anything. So if we look along, there are a number of different choices of things that I can do for the animation. For instance, I can have it fly in. They're all going to go together, okay. Or I can have it float. Or we can do, you can pick a selection here, and you can see that there's a number of things. We can have them bounce in just to really annoy you. So that's how you can animate some text. Because this is all grouped together, it seems to want to all work as one. So by doing that, if I select one of these and then make it appear, let's try fly in, you'll see that it just flies in by itself. So if I do that for each one of these, I guess I'm going to have to do that. Just going to click on each one and make them appear. So what I have now is I've selected them all. You'll see there are numbers down the side that indicate how many animations I have. And if I use this animation pane at the top, you'll see that I have a list here of the different items that are going to be animated. So just to give you an idea, and within each one of these, I have a choice in terms of whether I start on the click, I start with the previous one. So for the first one, I might want to start with the previous one, so it's going to be there when the slide comes up. And there's also the effect options, so I can do a bunch of different things after the animation. There's a lot of options in here in terms of how I can make it look. To give you an example as to how this looks right now, if I do slideshow, and from the current slide, you'll see the first one came in, and then as I click or hit my space bar, the different bullets come up one at a time. So that's just an example of how to animate that kind of text. If I look at this one, where what I might want to do is I might want to have the tree animated. In this case, you can see I already have a number of groups here that have already been selected. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take John Smith, which I grouped together earlier, and I'm going to animate him so he will appear as well. And you'll notice that he's number 5. The problem is the picture over here is number 3, and I really would like it last. So I can just click on it and drag it down and make it the last one. So now when I go through the animations, go back to slideshow, from the current slide, it starts off with me, and then it brings up part of the tree, more of the tree, John Smith, and then the really bad pedigree chart that goes with it. So it's a way you can walk through, leading your audience through a particular slide. The other example here is a document that Barb was talking about, and right now if I just show this from the current slide, that just all comes up together, and that really doesn't help you in terms of what you want to do. So what I'm looking at doing here is I'd like to take the part that comes up that we can see. I'm going to animate, have that, maybe we'll have that fade in. And then I want to take the circle. Can I get the circle? No. All right. I want the circle, and I'm going to have it, I'll just appear. So I had to do that because okay, what I actually should have showed you is right now I have the picture selected. If I don't want that at the front, what I can do is I can move it into the background. So I can send it to the back, in which case it's going to be behind everything else. In that case, I could grab the circle without having to move it out of the way, the other one out of the way I did. Bring it to the
Okay, Duncan, can you go through that really slowly? How did you grab it and change it to move it? What did you click on?
I right-clicked on the picture itself. So
Right-click on the picture, okay.
Yeah, right-clicked on the picture. Now I've duplicated it for some reason. Back, I want to go back. There we go. So as you can see over here, I have the 2 items in terms of the pictures. They're going to come up on click. So now if I do the slideshow on this one, start from the current slide, the first thing is going to be the letter, and I can talk about the letter and where it came from. And then I can show you the part that I'm really interested in, or in this case, Barb is really interested in. And then the very important part can be highlighted afterwards. So you can, again, step your audience through what you're talking about. So that would be it for animations. Just to give you an example of how they can be used, we'll look at this slide. As you can see, it looks pretty busy. The animation, make it bigger. So, but how that looks, and by the way, this is version number 6, I think, of this particular slide, trying to show this particular family group and what went on in the 1880s. So I started here with the families is what I want to highlight is Henry Charles Thorne and Elizabeth Ann Foster and their children, their marriage. I can then go on and talk about what happened later, where he was with Selina A. and the children that they had. I can then talk about Selina's previous marriage to Edward Halstead King and that family group. As you can see, I'm kind of leading you through the areas I want to talk about. And then I can talk about Elizabeth Ann Foster and Edward King and the children that they had in that family group, which happened somewhere in 1888, 1889. And then finally, the marriage of Edward King to Elizabeth Ann Foster in 1926. That was a fair bit of research genealogically on that one. So that's an example of how you might want to use animation to, again, to draw your audience through a particular slide or process of what you want to show them. The last one I wanted to show was some transitions. And here again, that if you look at the little down arrow here, there are many different transitions that you can use. Some subtle ones, some exciting ones, some dynamic content ones. If we look at some simple ones like fade, what it does is it takes the previous slide and moves things into where they are on the new slide. So in this case, you can see it took me and moved me into the tree where I was. Just a cute way of doing it. Some of the other things that you can look at, you might not want to use is, vortex, for instance. So something like this is probably very off-putting to a presentation. And there are a number of these that you can select that really might not be good choices for transitioning between one slide to the other. So I think that's it for that section. Barb, did you have some more stuff?
The only thing that I didn't get in on the last one was embedding fonts. It's important that you embed fonts, and perhaps, Duncan, you can follow along with me where you find that. If you don't embed your fonts and you happen to use your presentation on a different computer, all of your layout could go completely screwy, and it's actually happened to me in the middle of my presentation. So you want to go to File in the upper ribbon there and click on that. And that brings up this, and you go down to Options at the very bottom. And you want to go to Save, which is in the left column there. And down under Preserve Fidelity, there's a little box beside Embed Fonts in the file, and you want to click on that. And that will embed your fonts. Most of the time, it only, unless you click embed all the characters, it will embed the ones that are particular to your machine, and it will not embed the ones that would be common to any other machine. So if you have a particular font that you use and you had to bring it in, then you can do that. So I just wanted to cover that as well.
Okay, that's great. I think we're going to take a break now to practice some of those transitions and animations, and also some of the other things that were covered. Again, if you have questions, put them in the chat, and we'll try to answer them as we're going, or put them to the speakers.
Our next section is on presentation skills. So you've had a lot of information, a lot of stuff to try out over a very short period of time. And the last section hopefully will just give you some images and a few phrases that will stick with you when you go to do your presentation and to think about as you prepare for it. So the one thing that I want you to remember is that the PowerPoint is not your presentation. You are the presentation, and your PowerPoint is merely a visual aid. Remember, you want to illustrate, illuminate, clarify, and augment, and allow your audience to follow, understand, and care about your story. That's what PowerPoint does for you. Keep it to a few brief points and an image so that it augments your story. I'm going to share with you 5 tips that I got from a TED Talk called How to Avoid Death by PowerPoint by David J.P. Phillips. And it's on the list of URLs that we're going to give you. But I highly recommend that you go and check him out. He's very good. So the first one is 1 message per slide. You don't want to have a slide that has 2 or 3 or 4 messages on it. 1 message. 1 + 1 = 0. So if you put up a whole piece of information for somebody to read, even a few sentences for your audience to read, and then you talk over it, within 30 seconds of you changing the slide, they will have forgotten 90% of what you said. So if what you say is the most important thing, don't use sentences on the screen. Use bullets, short and quick. Size matters. He does a brilliant demonstration of actually moving your eyes up and down by changing the size of the title or the content. And you can see that the size here is very big. It's bigger than your title, and that's what your eyes would be drawn to. Contrast also works to draw focus to it. So I've grayed out the other points so far, and what your eyes are attracted to will be that white light. It's like a laser light with cats, and he flips the light around to all over the place, and your eyes just automatically go to it. So the other thing is, he suggests, particularly when you're talking in person, that you use dark backgrounds, because you don't want the PowerPoint to be the brightest thing in the room. You want it to be you. 6 objects per slide. So you don't want to have more than 6 things on a slide. People can actually take in one glance, 6 objects. And if you have more than that, they have to do 500% more work to take that in and process the information. And people generally won't do the work. So keep to 6 objects per slide. So those are the 5 key points from him. I believe that there are 4 elements that you need for every story. And you want to know what your hook is. How are you going to hook those people in to listen to your story and keep their attention throughout? You can't just hook them once. You've got to keep them hooked until you've reeled them all the way in. So what's your hook? You need a story arc as well as a storyline. The storyline to me is the ups and downs that happen during the talk. It's the little tidbits and the tangents that you bring in. Your story arc is the point of your talk, what you're focusing on. And it's like a clothesline. The story arc is like a clothesline, and the storyline are like clothespins along that clothesline. It doesn't stop the clothesline because there's a pin there. Your arc is always there. Your focus is always there. Your point of your talk is always there, no matter what the storylines you bring in. You want your points and your information to flow from one to another. You don't want to have a disjointed talk. And so you need information or some way of segueing from one thing to another so that it flows. People will be able to follow it if you have your information flow from A to B. Throughout, you want to focus in on that key story arc, the key person, the key event. You can bring all kinds of other information in, lines from all over the place, but you want them to relate to how it pertains to the focus of your talk. So in the talk I did on my great Aunt Nellie, I brought a lot of stuff about the First World War in, but it always came back to how it affected Nellie. So there's some other things to think about as well. Some people say, well, do you use a script or do you use speaking points? There's no right or wrong way to do it. It's whatever you're comfortable with. And if you need to have a script to feel comfortable and confident, then certainly use a script. However, you need to think about how you're presenting if you are using a script, because you can get into just reading it, and that's not very exciting for people. So you need to consider other aspects. You need to consider it with speaking points too, but you're less likely to need it with those. So first is voice modulation. And that includes tempo, it includes volume, it includes pitch. You want those to go up and down naturally. And you also want to use them in an effect. If you want people to pay close attention to you, lowering your voice and becoming very quiet helps with that. If you want to emphasize something, then you might get louder or talk a little faster. So all of those things come into voice modulation and make it more interesting. And if you're reading a script, you need to practice that so that you can get that modulation into your voice. You need to think about the speed that you're talking at. You don't want to go too slowly, but you certainly don't want to go too fast. If you have to take out a metronome and time yourself and practice to a good rhythm, then do that. You need to enunciate clearly because people won't understand you if you mumble, and you want to speak as naturally as possible. You don't want to be as informal as you might be with your friends, but you also don't want to sound like that horrible teacher that we all had that we hated to listen to. So speak naturally and pleasantly. Pronunciation is important, and I found a couple of websites, Forvo is one of them, where you can actually hear people from different areas in the world pronounce words. So I had an argument with a colleague at work one day. She said that this place name was pronounced Craigellachie, which is not how I'd ever heard it pronounced. And so I went online and I actually found Canadians and Scots pronouncing it Craigellachie, which is how I had known it. So every source I found pronounced it that way. And so I believe I won the argument. But it also helps in giving talks when you have a word that you don't know how to pronounce, whether it's from a foreign language or simply a place name that you've never heard anyone say. Use humor if you can. Make them laugh or at least smile. One thing it does is it relaxes them. It releases endorphins into their system, and that puts them into a mood to be more agreeable, more likely to tolerate. So that's good for you. But other emotions can be useful too. You can get them to empathize with something. The only problem with other emotions is, one, you have to be aware that your audience may not be totally comfortable with it. And you have to worry about your own emotions. And if you cannot talk about something without staying neutral, then you either have to practice until you can do that, or you have to leave it out, because there's nothing worse than a presenter who is crying and can't get the rest of her talk out. So emotions are good. Humor is really great because it's a really easy emotion for people to deal with. You want to make eye contact, particularly if you're in person. It's a little hard to do by Zoom, but you do want to make eye contact. However, you do want to do that with a smile. And on Zoom, most people can hear when someone is smiling. It makes a difference in how they react to you. And so you're more likely to keep them engaged if you're engaged with your subject. People like to see people who smile about what they're talking about. It means that they're enjoying themselves. When you're on Zoom, you need to think about light and sound. And I hope this isn't you on Zoom. Don't backlight yourself. Make sure you have some light on your face so that people can see you when you are visible with your video on, say, for questions afterwards or whatever. Believe it or not, people actually do get on Zoom where you can't see their face. And to me, it's the connection thing. You can't see their eyes. So you need to proofread whatever you put on your screen. In fact, you need to get someone else to proofread it, because as an editor, I know that I don't see my own mistakes. And in fact, I can have several people proofread things and I still have mistakes. So make sure you get someone to proof everything for you. Timing is important. And I'm notoriously bad on this. I'm guilty of it because I'm not great at timing at the best of times. So keep to your time and allow time for questions. I'm going to be very close to the line here. But it's important because it's a matter of respect to both your host and to your attendees. Listen carefully to questions. Make sure you understand what is being asked before you answer. If you need clarification, ask for that if you can. But there's nothing worse than waiting in line to have your question answered, only to have the speaker misunderstand your question and not give you an answer. It's also possible that they don't know, and if you don't know the answer, say so. Don't try to fake it. One of the most important things is practice, practice, practice. You need to plan for disaster and be prepared for anything to happen. The more you do that, the more likely you are to be comfortable while you're doing your presentation. And just a little piece of advice from me, from personal experience, is don't update your computer just before you do a presentation. It can lead to you maybe not having your computer to do your presentation. Second most important thing is relax and smile. Again, smiling makes all the difference. And finally, the most important thing is just do it. If you want your power presentation to pop, you've got to start. There you are.
That's great, Barb. You came in under time. Good for you. Duncan, could you turn your video on, please? Before we take the Q&A for the final session, in case people drop away, I just want to thank the two of you, Barbara and Duncan, for your very helpful tips and techniques. People are already saying thank you in the chat. I've learned stuff. I have to go back over the video. I didn't have time to really look at it and listen carefully, but I certainly picked up some hints. And I wanted to remind people that the videos will be posted in a couple of days once we get them edited. And what I like to do with these sorts of things is just go over the video, stop and start it, and you've got time to do it without waiting for that 10-minute break. You'll have access to the video, whether you're a member or not, for 2 weeks from the time they're posted, after which we'll put them behind the paywall. And while, in addition, we'll send an email to all participants telling you when the videos are online, and we'll put a copy of the chat up online as well. We're going to clean it up a bit, but there's been lots of tips and helpful things. And also the outline of helpful links that Barbara mentioned. We'll send that out as well. So now to your questions. I think people are still having a little bit of difficulty with finding the design tab. I think Dina answered that. It's if you look under the design function, you'll find it to the right. And maybe you can show that again.
If you go to design here in your upper ribbon, and the design themes.
Design ideas is blanked out on yours, yeah.
Yeah, probably because I'm not on a slide, maybe.
Yeah, click in the slide. Should.
No, I'm not quite sure why that is. Oh, I know, I turned it off when I was working on, that's what I did, was I turned it off.
Okay.
Because every time I brought in an image, it would pop up with the design ideas, and I turned that off until I start PowerPoint again, and I haven't restarted PowerPoint. So
Dina also said, could you click on File over on the left?
Yeah, as soon as I can get my cursor there.
File.
I just can't see where my cursor is.
There we go.
Okay.
Yeah, now if you look at, what did she say? There's something, oh, no, so what did she say? Okay, go on with another question. There's lots of questions here. Where do you turn?
I was going to go to the slide background because I noticed there was a fair bit of chat about that. So Wanda suggested that you just click on the slide in the left column of slides, and then you go to Format Background over on the right of the ribbon, and you can change the color by going down to the color, I think.
Now click on solid fill first, Barb.
Ah, there we are. So that changes the color, and then I can go down and change the color. And you'll notice that it's only done the slide that I had highlighted. It's not done all of them, so you can look over to the left and you'll see that the rest are in blue still. Now,
Okay.
someone said that they still had a problem with that. There is a button somewhere where you can, where you click apply to all, but that should not be on unless you click apply to all. And you can reset your background as well there. But if I click apply to all and then change to a solid color fill, it should change all of them. There we are. It's changed all of them.
Okay, so if you go to File and then New,
Let me undo that. Okay, File
and New.
and New, yes.
Yeah. Now you should get Search Online Templates and Themes. So you can do it there if you don't have design ideas on your, because a lot of
Okay.
people don't have 365. It's not
Yes.
on there. So we just wanted to show where
Yeah.
that was. So if you do a
Yeah.
new, you can search for things there. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I'm flipping around here, but about backgrounds, would you recommend starting with a blank presentation, then choose a theme and colors afterwards, or start at the beginning?
I choose a color that I think will go with all of the things that I want to use and that I feel is pleasant. I tend to use blues though. I don't like white screens. I like a bit of color. It contrasts nicely with images. I don't tend to use their themes because, as you see, this theme has a set of colors that goes with it for different things that you use in the presentation. And I don't necessarily want that. And you can change those up, but I generally just go to Format Background and choose a color that I like. And if I want a gradient, I choose a gradient fill. But I know Duncan often starts with a blank slate.
Yeah, I tend to start with a blank screen and then I'll fill in my presentation, and then towards the end I might go back and pick some themes and see which one complements what I'm trying to talk about. So, I did a talk on Irish, one of my Irish ancestors. So I went and picked the third one over looks like A with some green on it, for instance, as an example, and then see how that looks with your slides. It gives an idea as to how that kind of fits with what you want to talk about. Again, you're looking for something that complements what you're talking about.
Okay. Somebody's asked if you can show how to do animation for a full slide. I don't know if they mean animation for all the content on a slide or the transition, but I think let's show them how to do animation for all this slide, for instance.
Okay, so you click on animation and you click on a box. Unfortunately, this is one box and all of the words are in the one box. Generally, if you were doing a list like this, you would have them as separate boxes, but we can do the box and then the image if you want. So we're just going to have it fly in. I think that's fly in. And so that's going to come in from the bottom. And I want to bring up my animation pane, which is over here to the side. So that shows me what it's doing. And I click on that little arrow and I can start it on a click, or I can start it with the previous. I want to start it on the click. There are other options down here. And again, I would just suggest that you explore those because it would take us forever to go through everything that's in here. Then you would click on your image, and you might want to have it, let's choose something like zoom in. So it does that. And that sets up a second animation in here. You should be able to play those so that they come one after the other. And that's a little button here underneath in the animation pane. Or you can go to slideshow and then, so we want to do a slideshow from the current slide. Okay, let's try that once more.
Animation, Barb.
Sorry?
In the animation, you must have had it so that it was on they were on clicks. So they would only.
Yeah, I had it open still in full view rather than just in this. So it's going to work now. I'm sure of it. No, it's not. Oh.
Yeah, I don't know. Go back to your animation pane on the right-hand side. Click on the text boxes, the first one, where it says text box 3 or 4. Click on that one. And then click on the little down arrow. So it says start on click, and you want it to start with the previous one so that it comes up right away.
Well, I was going to start on a click, but okay. But my problem is that I'm okay. I understand what you're saying. I'm getting a blank screen because it was blank.
Because the animation was to start on your click. So now that's going to come up, and then
I click again, and there comes my image. Thank you, Duncan. Sometimes I'm a little slow on the uptake. If you want to do a transition from one slide to another, then the way to do that, and I'm going to pick 2 slides that are similar. That's not going to show anything. We'll go from this one. You go to transitions, and this gives you another choice, all kinds of different transitions. And I'm just going to fade in or fade out, fade in, fade out. So you click on fade, and you can close your animation pane here and your format pane. And we want to, we need to set up time. So it's going to be a duration of 2 minutes, I believe, or is that 2 seconds? 2 minutes for it to go. So let's just see what happens when I go to slideshow. So I click on that, and it's not doing what I've asked it to do. Duncan, would you like to take over? I don't seem to be doing very well on this.
Sorry, I was doing something else.
Oh.
What were you were looking at doing?
Well, doing a transition. Okay. So I was going to do a push to get to the next one. So that's what it's supposed to look like. A wipe will look like that.
Yeah.
So we want that. But then when I go to do it in the slideshow, it doesn't do it for me. I don't know why. Is it because I haven't got time or something on it?
No, it should be.
It should go from the click of a mouse. Let's try that one again. There we are. But it's showing me a blank screen for some reason.
And you click.
No, it's not. It doesn't seem to be working.
It may be because you've got it set for like 2 minutes, which is a really long time.
Yeah. Anyways, that's how you set it up, and hopefully it will work for you. You can always send us a query if you have difficulty, and we can try to answer. I would like to thank Dina Palamides, who has been working.
She's gone.
She's
yeah.
Well, I'd like to say it to the participants, because Dina came on as our tech background, and I had no idea that we'd chosen exactly the right person. She was amazing answering questions. She knows so much about PowerPoint, and so she was able to answer a lot of people's questions on the fly. So that was really great to have. And if you see her or talk to her, give her a thank you for being here for us. It's great to have her.
I'll make sure that she gets the content, the comments as well.
Yeah.
Barb, we're still getting questions about that photo thing that you were doing where you were straightening the
Okay.
photo. And it's
Yeah.
because we lost you. We lost your screen and we didn't see where you were finding that program. So
Okay.
we know how to insert the photographs. We know how to straighten them and crop them using PowerPoint. It's the part about where you went and got the photograph and used the photo program to edit it.
Okay. So you go to Insert and Pictures, and you want to go to this device because you're taking it off your computer. So I'll take this one because it's here. And instead of highlighting it and then clicking Insert, before you do that, you right click on the photograph. And that brings up a menu. And if you just go to Open, it will open automatically. At least most people's programs are set up so that it will open automatically in Photos if you have that on your machine. You can also go down here and open it with other programs. So you'll see I can open it up in Adobe Photoshop. I can open it up in GIMP. GIMP is a free photo manipulation program. But I want to open it up in Photos, so I choose that. So you can go down to Open With and see what you've got on your machine that you can work with. Paint 3D and all of these will work with images. I'm not totally familiar with what they will do. So I open it up in Photos, and it should.
Well, I'm not this is where we're going to lose you, I think, because you might have the right screen saved.
Okay, so I'm now going to.
But if you open it up in Photos, that's where you get to the program.
Yes.
Okay.
And are you now seeing in Photos?
Yep.
Okay, so this is what it comes in looking like. And you want to go up to the bar here where it says Edit and Create. Click on that, and a drop-down menu comes up. You pick Edit, and it changes to this screen. And you want to go Crop and Rotate because that's what you want to do. So you click on that, and you get this panel on the right-hand side with a line that says straightening. So this is fairly straight anyways, but if I take it to the right, it goes clockwise. If I take it to the left, it goes counterclockwise. And it shows you the buttons look like as you turn it. One reason you can do that. There's also things like rotate in a different manner and flip. You can set it to a certain aspect ratio. So there's other things there that you can explore. There's also filters that you can apply. So you can, add colors and all kinds of weird things. And there's adjustments that you can make here too, so that you can change your color and your the light levels, the brightness. So I can darken that down with my color. I can lighten it up if I need to, or darken it down. I can increase the clarity of it, and that will sharpen it up a little bit. I can also put a vignette around it so that you get this sort of dark circle or light circle, depending on where you place it. So those are all things you can do in that. And of course, you can also crop. Once you have rotated, you can take this and you can crop that down just by pulling on the edges. As long as you've got those white dots there, you can crop. And then you go down here to save a copy. And you click on that, and it brings up this, and it will ask you where you want to save it to. And you are saving a copy, but you never want to save to the file that you took it from with the same name. So you go in and change it by just something like version 2, and you save that. And it will save it to that file folder as a copy, and your original has not been changed. So you don't need to worry about that.
Okay, that's great. I think, we couldn't save that one.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to end it here. And I want to I want to pass on a comment from Susan Nutbrown that is exactly what I thought when I saw your presentation when we were doing the run through. She says, "Thank you. This has been great to rediscover PowerPoint within a genealogy context." And that's terrific. I mean, these are needs that we have, doing family trees, photographs, maps, all that sort of thing. So it's been terrific. Once again, thank you to the two of you for all the hard work you've done. I know you spent hours on this, and I know it's always nerve-wracking to do it live. And so I appreciate the bravery for the two of you to do that. And once again, we'll have the video posted with the chat that we'll clean up and make sure that the tips stand out. And we'll make sure that we pass on all of the thank yous that we're getting from people pouring in here. So thanks again, everyone. And hope to see you soon, possibly on the 13th of February for our next monthly meeting.